All right, there are a lot of ways you can go from here, so I'm just going to try to stick to one for right now. The way I like to do this is to next do a table of 5 points, and then I graph it after. I don't try to graph it as I go. I just make a table. So I'm going to make a table of x and y values, basically. And let's talk about the y values, because the y values are the same for sine. No, oops, my bad. No, the y values are going to be different. Let's talk about the x values first then. Sorry, even though the y values are actually easier. So whether it's cosine or sine, to find the x values, I always want to do the same thing. The first point I want to start with is the h value. The h value is going to tell me where to start one of my periods. All right, so h is pi over 2, so I'm going to start at pi over 2. Simple as that. That's it. That's one. I'm going to get 5 points here. Okay, so let's make some lines here. Literally using lined paper and drew lines on it, whatever. So I'm going to get 5 points. So that's the first point. Now, that's the start of my period. Now, the length of the period is p, so 4 pi. So if I start here, my period is going to go on for 4 pi, and then it's going to end. So to figure out the last point, I'm going to do the starting point plus p. So if I add p to this, okay, so 4 pi, so pi over 2 plus 4 pi. Okay, well, here we go again. I got to do addition of fractions. So again, I got to do some like other math steps. So I got to do pi over 2 plus 4 pi. Can't do that. I got to rewrite 4 pi. So I get pi over 2 plus 8 pi over 2, right? This is the same thing. So I get 9 pi over 2. So 9 pi over 2. Cool. So here's the start. Here's the end. Everything else from here on out is averages. So remember to find an average of two numbers, add them, and then divide by 2. So to find the middle number, I will add the first and last and divide by 2. Okay, so here we're going to do addition of fractions and dividing with fractions again every time. So pi over 2 plus 9 pi over 2, sorry, I'm not going to write it out, is 10 pi over 2. And if I divide that in half, 10 pi over 2 in half is 5 pi over 2. Okay, you should have these steps written in your notes anyway. I'm just trying to explain it again. You can ask questions later. Okay, cool. Now I have the first, the middle, and the last. Well, halfway between the starting point and the middle is another average. So if I take the average of these two, I'll get this point. So pi over 2 plus 5 pi over 2 is 6 pi over 2. Half of that is 3 pi over 2. Same thing here. This point is the average of these two. So when I add them, I'll get 14 pi over 2. Half of that is 7 pi over 2. When you're all done, you should notice a nice little pattern. Right? Pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 5, 7, 9 pi's over 2. Okay, that's finding the x values. And that'll be the same for cosine or sine function. Start with h, add p to get the last value, average of those to get the middle one, average of these two to get this one, average of these two to get this one.